We move away from Indianapolis Motor Speedway to the home of Chevrolet. We are here in Detroit for the Detroit Grand Prix. This temporary street circuit around the streets of Detroit always delivers. It's time for practice 2 here at Detroit, taking you through as the green flag goes out. It's the INDYCAR Radio Network. Let's throw down to them now.
This is the INDYCAR Radio Network.
We feel the rumble as they exit pit road, just outside of our window here. And practice is underway, practice session number 2 before we go qualifying later today. Chevrolet Detroit Grand Prix presented by Lear, Mark James, Davey Hamilton. We'll have Ryan Marine and Michael Young with us through this 45-minute session, 45 minutes of time allotted. A window of about an hour to get that in. And Davey, Alex Below picking up here on the streets of Detroit where he left off last year, getting to victory lane. He was fastest yesterday at a time of 61.7210. Other notable times yesterday: Pato Award, Colton Herta, Kyle Kirkwood, Scott McLaughlin, your top 5.
Yeah, and interesting, Mark, is yesterday afternoon, the end of the practice session, they split the field in half into 2 groups so they could go out and run on their alternate qualifying tires or alternate soft or compound tires that they will qualify on. Some teams, like Colton Herta, was P1 until that time. He didn't gain that much speed on the alternate, but boy, Pelot did. He went from like P2 right to P1. So it's going to be interesting to see on how those alternate tires pan out in qualifying and in the race. But this practice session is all about speed before qualifying on the primary tires, all they get to use. And conditions seem to be really good. Just before this practice session, the Indy Next was out. They went faster than they did yesterday, so I expect potentially these cars will go faster.
You know, I know that all the years we've worked together, I've never asked you this, but how does your driving style, your approach, your usage of tools, how does that change between the alternate to the primary?
Yeah, and there is some there. You like to think that you don't have to change much, but that with this more grip in that alternate tire, sometimes the balance changes. Rather the front doesn't turn quite as good, even though you're going faster, but it may not, the balance is not there. So sometimes you have to make adjustments, whether it's statically by your team or in that cockpit with your tools. So sometimes you don't have to do anything. It just gives you more overall grip, but most times you have to change a little bit of something.
Let's get an update on the conditions off to what appears to be a picture-perfect start here on the streets of Detroit. Let's welcome in for the first time this weekend, Ryan Marine.
Hey, thank you, Mark. It is beautiful here in downtown Detroit. Mostly sunny skies, a little bit of a haze overhead, and we do expect some cloud cover to roll in by the end of the day, but it's not here yet. 70 degrees ambient temperature. That's up 6 degrees from when we came on air earlier today for Indy Next by Firestone practice, and the track temperatures are up as well, up to 77 degrees now. That's up 8 degrees from 8 o'clock this morning when we came on air for Indy Next. So getting into that window where the conditions are going to be favorable for fast times. This is a crucial tune-up, of course, with qualifying coming up here later on this afternoon ahead of the big race tomorrow. Also joining me here in this split pit lane in downtown Detroit, it's Michael Young. Hi, Michael.
Well, good morning, and a beautiful day, as you said, here on the streets of Detroit, Ryan, as we see nearly every car go out on track. On my side of pit lane, we have a couple still remaining here. One of those being the 28 of Marcus Ericsson. The crew still walking around that car. Rinus VK has yet to go out, so too Augustine Canapino. So those 3 still sit on my end of pit lane, or my side, I should say. There's no look of any kind of hurriedness, at least on the Marcus Ericsson car, as they now start to take off the side pods of that car and looking at the machine. We'll see if there's an issue, because they're undoing this entire car, taking the rear wing off as well. So Marcus Ericsson, potential issues before this practice session even got underway.
Yeah, boy, it's not been the start to the season that he would have hoped for with that race team, and I hate it for him, Davey, because he is absolutely one of the absolute nicest guys in the paddock.
You know, and not that he's doing anything massively wrong. I mean, just little things seem to happen, and it's cost him, and you can get away with it sometimes. For example, this start where things started going bad really at the start of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, had a fast race car, got just, I mean, within inches, a little bit too low down in turn 4, loses the car, crashes it, and it seemed like the spare car just wasn't good, and it's just been downhill from there.
Well, let's hear from his car owner, Michael Andretti.
When it rains bad luck, it pours bad luck, Michael Andretti. What's going on with Marcus's car?
I don't know. He put it in gear to go, and just everything shut down, the dash, everything. So some sort of electrical problem trying to find.
Mentally for him, it was a rough month of May, and what could have been a great race taken away in the very first turn, and then to come into Detroit and have this issue. Where is he mentally?
He's still hanging in there pretty good, but he's just, it's just frustrating for all of us. We think we had a really good car to compete in Indy last week, and thinks he has a fast car now, so, losing this time right now is not good.
I'll let you get back to it.
Thanks.
That's Michael Andretti.
Yeah, good stuff from Michael Andretti, and you can hear the frustration in his voice as well, Dave.
Yeah, well, it's one situation where you want all your cars to do well, and when one of them just seems not to have that luck, and Michael said, man, when you have a little bad luck, it just seems to keep on coming, but it needs to end. I mean, Marcus, we know what a good guy he is and what a talent he is as well, and something's got to turn around for sure.
I'm not saying that anybody is intentionally doing anything wrong, because racing doesn't work that way. Yeah. But do you think, too, this might be one of those situations where it's going to take some time for him to get on the same page with his race engineers and his engineers to understand what he's feeding them in terms of feedback to the car and being able to set the car up the way he likes it?
Yeah, I think that could be part of it, but it's really not the problem with them going slow. It's the problem with incidents happening, right? It's not so much as like the engineer and him seem to have a communication of being fast, but it's just getting that little bit of luck going. And sometimes what happens, Mark, when you're on the bad luck side of things, you try harder and try harder, and it just continues to bring more. So maybe it's time to back up a little bit, take a breath, say, okay, I need to get through this qualifying run and not touch anything. I need to, have my space and try to stay away from guys and just try to build the confidence back up. As McLaughlin yesterday had put a lot of laps in, found himself in third, and the timing chart shoots up to number one right now.
Let's go back, check in with Michael Young.
Potential engine ground issue. They just went through the entire car. They're bolting everything back together. They fired the car back up. They were trying to replicate the issue when he went to take off. They had the engine in idle. He put it into gear, and the rear axle started to rotate. They think they figured it out, or maybe they have no idea what happened, but in either case, they're buttoning that car back up, and we'll see Marcus Ericsson out momentarily.
Okay, good stuff. And also waiting to see, I'm looking to see if, Jack Harvey has, they have made repairs to his car. The 18 car is back out on track.
Yeah, had a pretty good shunt yesterday off turn 7, got that wall pretty good. Looked like the right front was damaged and some underwing, and that Delcoin car wasn't, obviously just a bummer. Back to tight quarters, back to you can't make one little mistake, and if you do, it costs you dearly. And right now, we see several cars already early on going in the runoff areas. Kirkwood shoots himself to P1. Remember yesterday that at Andretti camp, he set a long time with issues in that car. Came out late, a really good lap down, but today it seems like things are going his way. First car that I've seen in the 102 range, Mark, at 102.9167, so quick lap by Kirkwood.
Incredibly narrow portions of this racetrack, Davey. I mean, the reality of it is there are several portions of this course that are essentially single file.
Yeah, for sure single file. There's no way of getting through it any other way. And we talked yesterday, Mark, on where you gain speed and where you want to shine. I think when it comes to right now in qualifying is you want to be fast in those technical areas, because that's the majority of this racetrack, other than a really long straightaway, and everybody gets down that pretty good. But the way they set these cars up is going to be a little bit different. Some are going to go with heavy downforce to get to these technical areas. Some are going to go with no downforce to try to get down the straightaway, which is better. It's just going to be a balance as we see. It's like VK goes off down in turn 1, gets it turned around, fired back up, getting ready to pull, and we got another car off track too. These runoff areas are definitely getting there's more rubber in the runoff areas. And Scott Dixon in turn 8 goes off. He's a little skewed in there. Don't know if he stalled the car. Looks like he potentially has. Red flag. More than likely he's going to come out to get Dixon turned around. Yeah, his hands are off the wheel. He's not even trying to get it going, so it's stalled. They're going to have to throw a red and go get him retrieved.
Let's go back to pit road, check in again with Michael Young.
Yeah, we'll chronicle the issues with Marcus Ericsson. They thought they had everything taken care of. They got the the car started, and when he went to drop it in first gear and take off, the car shut off again. So they've taken everything apart, trying to find a ground issue potentially with Marcus Ericsson's car.
Yeah, we have seen race teams chase electrical gremlins all weekend long. The one that comes to mind, not necessarily in the NTT IndyCar series, but remember, go back to Barber with Louis Foster in IndyCar.
Wow, how
chased
about
it
that?
all weekend long.
Until the race, and then he put a good show on. It worked out good for the fans, and for us, Mark, means that he was fun to watch. Started in the back, worked his way through that field, and had a respectable finish after the entire weekend with those electrical gremlins. And if you look at these cars close up, I mean, it's not just a wire to turn it on and off anymore. There is so many electronics. Everything is done by electronics, from the way the clutches work to just everything. So when you have that spot, that bad gremlin, it's hard to find sometimes.
And we've seen a couple of drivers in the runoff area. In addition, Elio Castro Neves has gone off in the runoff area. It looks like he's able to get his machine refired. Talked to Elio Castro Neves yesterday. Interview we shared with you during our first practice session. And basically what it boiled down to, Davey, the reason Tom Blomqvist was taken out of the car and Elio's going in for the next couple of races is because there's leader circle money available at stake, and they've got to have it.
They got to have it. And by the way, I don't know if you looked at the chart yesterday, Elio was just kind of hanging in there in top 15. But right now, right before he went off, he laid a lap down. He's second quickest behind Kirkwood. Slides in between Kirkwood and Dixon. That is very impressive, I have to say. Not a full-time driver. He did run Indy. Elio, we know he's a four-time winner in the Indianapolis 500. We know he's an outstanding driver and can go down in the history books as one of the all-time greats. But to come here on this difficult racetrack and jump into P2 right now is pretty darn impressive.
Felt good about the rhythm that he was able to build up over the month of May in practice and qualifying. He said that, obviously made it a wise move to put him in the race car for this difficult track here this weekend. Back to Michael Young.
Just updating on pit lane, Kyle Kirkwood and Scott McLaughlin both just got in and left. Scott McLaughlin put on a fresh set of Firestones, and Kyle Kirkwood is doing the same, although he still sits on pit lane. Scott McLaughlin just checked out, so getting some of these tires scuffed, getting prepared for qualifications a little bit later on this afternoon, early in this practice session.
Kirkwood, Castro Neves, Dixon was P3 before his issue in the runoff area installed it. Alex Pillow, yesterday's fastest, was fourth quick. Pato Award, fifth quick. Teo Porcher showing some pace early on in that sixth machine. He's sixth quick. Then McLaughlin, Ferrucci, Will Power, and Roman Grosjean through 10th. Colton Herta 11th. Marcus Armstrong is 12th. Then Jack Harvey, Canapino, Rob Lundquist, Simpson and Rasmussen, Rossi, Lundgaard, Newgarden, Rosenquist, Rahal, Fittipaldi. For those that did not join us yesterday, Davey, they may have missed the news that Tristan Vautier is in the car for Dale Coyne Racing this weekend.
Yeah, and how about early on, Vautier in that 14th spot, pretty impressive right out of the box. And how about this for that Dale Coyne, his teammate Dale Coyne, Harvey, got in the wall yesterday, finds himself P10 right now. I'm sorry, P11 right in between VK and Power. So that's good to see that team find a little bit of speed today. I know some of these drivers aren't up to speed yet, but still impressive just getting going right now.
That split session yesterday, Davey, was a huge benefit for these drivers to reduce the number of cars on the racetrack because as we watch now, if anybody is attempting to do anything close to a qualifying sim, they're going to find it tough go because there's a lot of traffic on a 1.6 mile course.
Yeah, just so tight, get around there so darn fast, and when it's so narrow, when you catch up to some of these guys, you can't just go around them because there's no room to do that. But I tell you, what I say about this track, it has character. It's very challenging. It has character, but most importantly, it's Detroit loves it. They have, as you mentioned yesterday, they over tripled the amount of suites they have. The fan is sold out for Sunday. It's a great venue. They've worked really hard. Bud Danker and the team have worked really hard on fixing some spots on this racetrack to make it more racy, and so we're here for a while, and it's exciting to be downtown Detroit.
I spent a few minutes with Bud Danker this morning. In fact, when I first got to the racetrack, and obviously he was all smiles, and you could tell. I was lucky I caught him standing still, which you don't do very often. But no, I said, hey, congratulations on the great start. And he said, yeah, we were very pleased with yesterday, the way it all came together. He said, I mean, the backdrop that we have here is just everything that we hoped it would be. And he said, but you know what? He said, we've got 48 48 more hours to make this thing perfect, and that's our biggest challenge.
And ask him how much sleep he got last night, because it wasn't very much. I mean, he works very hard at this, and the backdrop is outstanding. But, hey, it's good to be here, and it's safe for everybody. That's the thing.
Let's back to pit road, Ryan Marine.
Watching some crews working on race cars here as we approach the halfway point of this session. Teo Porcher for Arrow McLaren. He is in, and they've been doing some significant adjusting on that car, front and back. Damper changes at the front. That's currently underway. Some suspension changes towards the back of that car as well. He's been reasonably quick here at his first trip to the streets of Detroit, but still looking for that little bit of extra performance. In front of him, we see Jack Harvey in the pits, and as you guys have talked about, Jack had that big wall contact yesterday. Great job by the Dale Coyne Racing crew to get that car repaired. They're taking a good look over that race car, but so far so good. Jack's been reasonably happy here with the repaired car in this practice session. And remember, he's been out of the car for a little while. He was helping the team in an advisor capacity in the month of May, trying to get Nolan Siegel into the show. Slots back into that race car here this weekend, and thus far has looked reasonably comfortable.
Thank you, Ryan. Augustin Canapino went to P1, but only momentarily because Renus VK started pedaling a little harder, Davey.
That Ed Carpenter driver looking really good right now. It's Lundgaard, times are just continuing to drop. Now it's Lundgaard, VK, Canapino, Power, and McLaughlin at top 5. But Castroneff is still hanging in there in that 9th spot. Dixon in 10th. The times are dropping 102.40. Don't be surprised when we go into those 101s, because I think it's going to happen, especially if it doesn't happen in this session right here, it's going to happen in qualifying.
30 minutes remaining in this session, Michael Young.
And for Marcus Armstrong, some camber adjustments on the front end of the number 11 Honda for Chip Ganassi Racing. Right behind him, Felix Rosenquist. They've changed some dampers in the front of that car, trying to get the front end to hook up with the racetrack. Both those cars sit on pit lane. They will both go out on sticker Firestones. So too Scott Dixon, who left just moments ago. He went to sticker Firestones as well.
Short little straightaway off of turn number 9, Davey, before you set up for 1, and that short little jog, the left-hander between 1 and 2, ultra important because of that very long back straightaway. You could consider that the front stretch, I guess, because that's where the race is going to start. That thing runs 3,696 feet, but what's interesting about it is after you're rewarded with all that speed, from turn 3 all the way around to turn 7, you got your work cut out for you.
You got your work out for you. Then another small straightaway, and then 2 more, back to 9, 8, 9, and back into 1, super tight again. So you're right. You got this long straightaway that I think, we're going to see a lot of action. That's where the passing zone is most friendly. That's where you're going to be able to take advantage of the draft down this long straightaway. Under braking, you're going to see them 2, 3, 4 wide going down in turn 3. It's going to be an exciting place to watch, and we've seen a lot of things happen there last year. Now, we did see a few cars pass in areas that you don't think you can. As a matter of fact, in between turn 4 and 5, just a short little downhill straightaway, we've seen McLaughlin take advantage of a car. I think once everybody's up to speed, you're not going to see that again. But, and then as tight as this is, we've seen it time and time again. If you barely brush that wall and bend a toe link or bend a wheel, that's going to ruin your day. And then by our top is Pillow. Shoots back to the top. Almost he's at 102.26 at this point with McLaughlin, Lundgaard, Canapino. I get you impressed with Canapino in that 78 car with Uncos Hollinger Racing. They have a good car, but he just keeps stepping it up, doesn't he? Just gets faster and faster, and such a good guy.
Well, it's interesting to note, Davey, because we often see him in the top 10, top 8, top 9 in practice sessions. Top 12, I guess, is a little more accurate. We think, boy, this is going to be his weekend. But, his last 4 starting positions, 20th, 15th, and 22nd, and that kind of mirrors his finishing position. So, as he gains more experience, ideally, like with Rosenquist, he starts well. We need him to finish well. Yeah. Canapino seems to practice well and then has a bobble for whatever the reason in qualifying.
Yeah. And then, his teammate, by the way, Grosjean, we thought from the time he stepped over here he was going to be in victory lane way before now. Been with several different teams, just hasn't worked out for him. And to be able to beat him, former Formula 1 driver, came over here strong in a lot of races, been on poles, contention to win, and then just hasn't pulled off. But he seems to be down on that chart a little bit compared to Canapino. As we see him right now, go a little bit wide.
That's Grosjean and O'Ward.
O'Ward, yeah, they've had some history together as well.
Michael Young.
Yeah, for Marcus Ericsson, a lot of dumbfounded faces, I guess you could say, here in the Andretti pit for Marcus. He finally got himself out. They got whatever problem they had fixed, but clearly frustrated with the fact that they've lost half of this practice session sitting here on pit lane. But he'll get out, turn some laps, and hopefully he will have just as good of a race car yesterday as he will today.
Yeah, a lot of confidence from Marcus Ericsson going into this race weekend. And Davey, and as disastrous as things have been for Marcus Ericsson this season, I think it was widely believed and he viewed, according to some of the published accounts and conversations he'd had with Marshall Pruitt, among others, the fact that he was looking at this weekend as kind of a reset and kind of felt like that his season would essentially begin here in Detroit. He finished 23rd at St. Petersburg. He was 5th at Long Beach, and you look like, okay, he finally got his legs underneath him with his race team. But his last 3 finishes for Marcus Ericsson, 18th, 16th, and 33rd in the 500.
Yeah, just not where they want to be. And talking to Michael this morning and Andretti, that is team owner, just frustrated. And another Andretti car with electrical gremlins. The other one was in Indy next. Obviously, we have a car stopped.
Marcus Armstrong.
Yeah, Armstrong in that runoff area. It looks like he got it turned around, but stalled it. So we see the safety crew getting in there, going to get him fired off and get him going again. We just see an issue right now with one of the cars, I think Pato Ward, and coming into turn 1 with a car coming off of pit lane, really tight down in that area as well.
Well, Marcus Armstrong, I tell you, had those mechanical gremlins at Indy, which ended his day early, Davey, and he was really, really frustrated. Felt like he had a really good race car, and that kind of ended a pretty good string for him. If you go back to Thermal, where he finished 5th, I know not points bank, but he was 12th at Long Beach, 9th at Barber, and finished 5th at the GP after starting in the 25th, finishing 25th at St. Petersburg. So Marcus Armstrong is the guy, and again, we talked earlier about it, Mike Cole saying, so impressed with this kid and his ability to soak everything in from his teammates, and said that he's been a really rock-solid addition to that race team.
Yeah, and I agree. I think he's taken it nice and slow. He hasn't been making any big mistakes. Obviously, some things have taken him out, like the 500, where he has an engine expire, or something happened to his engine early on, not giving him a run. But just smooth. Looks like he does a good job. He's just kind of taking it one step at a time, not driving over his head. And at this point, I tell you, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, points championship looks pretty good early on for Ganassi. Davey, we talked about the numbers earlier. We talked about Alex Palou and Scott Dixon and the solid seasons that they are putting together. But Colton Herta went into the month of May leading in points. He's still very much within striking distance. And we mentioned Will Powers in championship contention along with Pato Award. And you look lingering now inside the top 10 after the start that they got off to with the penalties. And boy, here comes Scott McLaughlin and Joseph Dugard.
Yeah, man, how about that? So impressive. They're even in the top 10, but obviously wins change that, polls change that, and they've been racking up the points, no question about that, and they're not wanting to give up now with McLaughlin second quickest, Newgarden 5th at this point. How about Power in 7th? All Penske cars in that top 7. Right now you got a Honda on top, though. A Honda, Chevy, Honda, then 5 more Chevys behind that. Obviously we're in Detroit. This is home of Chevrolet and the bow tie, and you know that they want to win this race more than anybody. But as we talked, I think Honda wants to win this race more than anybody because of they want to do it in their backyard.
Yeah, that's right. They like the backdrop of the photo ops for sure. The folks at Honda would love nothing more. We can tell you that it's a busy day for Russ because next up at 11:20 we'll go Indy Next qualifying. That'll run until about noon Eastern, and then we'll have IndyCar qualifying, the knockout qualifying format. The Firestone Fast 6 gets it away at 12:15. Wrap that up about 1:50. We're done so early today, Davey, because the folks here in the city of Detroit, the streets of Detroit promoters, happy to add an IMSA race this year.
Yeah, exciting to see that. And this afternoon they're going to have them race here. So obviously we get off a little bit early, but we get to enjoy that sports car race. Seems like everything's going good with them. We didn't know how it would be their first time here with this layout of a track, but it seems to be good. Everybody seems happy, and it's good to have them aboard with us.
And I mean, no ovals for that series, but still they race on a variety of different racetracks. A lot of those with elevation changes, those natural terrain courses and courses like this.
Yeah, I think it's time for them to go on ovals, actually. I'd like to see some of those on ovals just to see what they could do. Obviously, very cool cars. And by the way, on ovals, especially, very aerodynamic. I mean, as far as the aerodynamics, if you put them in a wind tunnel, they're slicker than these open-wheel Indy cars. And they have them things really fast. They can lay down some lap times. They're light. They're basically an Indy car with body over them. So fun to watch, fun to drive, obviously, and looking forward to see them get around here.
22 minutes remaining in this session. We'll run you through the 27 cars, let you know where they stand as we see Regis VK in the runoff area. It's Herta, Palou, McLaughlin, Lundgaard, and Canapino, the top 5. Looking at a 61.733 and a 62.012. Then a 64.668 for McLaughlin, Lundgaard, and Canapino as we send the top 5. Newgarden, Kirkwood, VK, Dixon, and Will Power through 10th. Rossi is 11th. Ray Hall is 12th. Porcher is 13th. 14th, Award. Ferrucci, Lundquist, Fittipaldi, Castroneves, Harvey, and Tristan Vautier, 20th. Then Simpson, Erickson, Grosjean, Armstrong, Rosenquist, Rasmussen, and Stingray Robb. Looks like the onboard starter is going to be needed to get Regis VK back underway.
Yeah, it looks like that. He got it flipped around, no problem. As we see another car go off, Stingray Robb, also in a runoff area sideways. But VK got it turned around, looked good. He went to take off and stalled it, which is easy to do. And he's down to getting fired up right now. Looks like they're going to have to do the same thing for Stingray Robb as he shot into a runoff area as well.
Ryan Marine.
Your two-time and defending Indy 500 champion Joseph Newgarden in the pits right now. They were doing some work at the back of that car, making some very minute adjustments. They had the cowling off. It's now gone back on, and it looks like they're due to refire the number 2 machine here before too much longer. But taking a close look at it, we talk about these tight street courses. In another example, the right front for Newgarden, the Firestone has been scuffed off the sidewall of that car, of that tire, I should say. It doesn't look like the wheel made any contact with the wall. There's no concern about the suspension or anything like that. But I tell you what, this place is super fast, super low grip, and very, very difficult to get around. The speed is found close to the walls. There goes Joseph Newgarden looking for a little bit more of that speed here in the final couple, 20 minutes or so of this practice session.
Yeah,
Michael Young.
20 minutes accurate for sure. Michael?
Yeah, for Christian Rasmussen, they're checking the front left suspension, missing the Firestone logo on that front left, and actually got into the carbon fiber of that front wing. Looks like they may opt to change that front wing out. So far, they're going to leave it on, but looking at that suspension, and I can't quite tell, but it looks like he may have a bent toe link. It looks like that may indeed be the case. So they will go to work on the 20 car as they're looking it over again. They may not have one, but boy, he scuffed it on that very front left of that car and got the tire into the wall as well.
Davey, I'm not sure that anyone in this field of 27 is going to be able to avoid the walls in it all throughout the course. About everybody's going to touch them at one time or another.
Yeah, I think if they haven't been in the runoff area, or they haven't skimmed the wall, it's very few of them that haven't touched anything, and I don't know who that would be for sure, or not running like Erickson.
You know, this track map is really deceptive when we look at it. When we see what's on the track map and we look up at turn number 3, I mean, it is a for sure hairpin. I mean, I don't know that's necessarily as tight as the one at Long Beach, but it's still plenty tight.
Yeah, it's not as tight, but the difference is the speed going into it is much, you're going into it, the hairpin, instead of out of a hairpin at Long Beach. So that's what makes it a little more difficult.
Is 4 challenging? Because, I mean, I would think instincts tell you when you come off of 3 to get back into that throttle as quickly as you can, but you need to be careful because that's a short little straightaway to that right-handed turn forward.
And you're unwinding the wheel so much. You have so much input into it. When you go to get on the throttle, that back end wants to spin the tires, it's hard to correct it. So you need to be careful in that area. And it is a short little shot to turn 4, but that is another little passing zone, Mark, between 3 and 4. If you lose a little traction coming off there, and there's several different lines you can take through that hairpin at turn 3, not just a single line like Long Beach. And so, you can get a little bit of a run on them, and it's a bit of a drag race getting into that really tight turn 4. By the way, that's one at a time through that corner.
And we should make mention that one of the reasons why they spend so much time with the upper body is that because of the lack of power steering in these cars. With your passenger car, when you come through a turn, you can let that wheel slip right through your fingers. No such luck.
No such luck here. No, that's right. There's no power steering, and that's why it takes so much strength to drive these cars. And the bumpier the track, the more difficult it is. And when you have that much input, by the way, the shifters, your up shift, down shift, your clutch, everything's on that steering wheel. So when you're when you have a crank like that, you lose control of those tools as well sometimes. So it is tough. I mean, it's a tough corner for sure.
Turn 8 runoff area looks like for Linus Lundqvist as they're looking to get him restarted. So it looks like the AMR INDYCAR safety crew will be busy with the onboard starters.
Yeah, I think maybe they should just have a couple starters just sitting down there at all times so the truck doesn't have to pull in there, because it seems, most of the time you can keep it running, but what happens is these clutches get a little bit of heat in them, and it's hard to get them spun around, they get them put in forward, they go, and sometimes they stall, which is very easy to do.
So they get that car refired. It looks like Linus Lundqvist will rejoin the fray with about 17 minutes remaining in this practice session. And knock wood, it's been relatively uneventful to this point. Boy, that's a narrow opening to that pit road, isn't it?
Yes, it's pretty much narrow everywhere except for pit road itself. We got a super wide pit road because it's pits on each side of it, as we talked about. That merges into a one-lane exit. We thought there could be some issues there. It's a little give and take, but last year worked out, so this year we'll see what happens.
I will say this: if you get caught speeding on this pit road upon entrance, I don't think you're going to make a clean entry if you're going in there too high.
More than likely, you're going to be crashed because you got to be stopped by the time you get there.
It's about a couple of inches on each side of the race car when they get into that pit. And I think it was last year that they finally decided to add that yellow, black and yellow arrow. The banner to that attenuator to kind of give folks a reference point, because there were some narrow misses going into that.
Narrow misses. And another thing is, if one car's in front of you and maybe off the pace a little bit, you're wanting to come in pit lane, that could really lose some time coming in there as well. Then you try to make it up on pit lane. And by the way, I think the worst pit stop to have, as soon as you come in that tight of the hole, the first one to the right, which I think is Stingray Robb at this point, because they go on how you qualified the last race, and so he didn't get a very good pit selection. And that's a tough box to get into.
Clock says under 16 minutes in this session, Michael Young.
For Christian Rasmussen, there'll be no bent toe link in the front left. They made an adjustment, added some camber to the rear of that car, but as I was walking out of pit lane, I noticed a front right tire that was scuffed up pretty bad from hitting a wall, and then on their tugger cart, I noticed 2 toe links that were bent. So Christian, that rookie, having a rough start here at the streets of Detroit, but certainly he's not the only one, as everybody finding it hard to get around this concrete canyon here in Detroit.
And we just saw it not necessarily an incident, but we suspect to be a common theme throughout race day, with one car coming off a pit road while another one was setting up for turn 1.
Yeah, how about that? Rossi coming out of the pits, and boy, Canapino, he flat caught him quickly and had to make pretty aggressive actions to get around him without contact. But yeah, we're going to see a lot of that when it comes race time.
So Colton Herta continues P1 at a time of looks like 61.733.
Only one in the 61 range.
Yeah, he's about a second and a half right now faster than Alex Palou, somewhere around there.
Actually, no, he's at 107 to 102.0, so a quarter of a second.
A quarter of a second. So then Herta, Palou, Kirkwood, McLaughlin, and Canapino, the top 5. Then Power, Lundgaard, Newgarden, VK, Award, the top 10. Dixon is 11th quick, then Rossi, then Armstrong, Rahal, and Grosjean, Pourchaire. 16th, Ferrucci, 17th, Ericsson, Lundqvist, Fittipaldi through 20th. Castroneves 21st, Tristan Vautier 22nd, Stingray Robb is 23rd, Jack Harvey is 24th, then Kiffin Simpson, Felix Rosenquist, and Christian Rasmussen. Michael just documented the issues that he has had after making contact with the wall. Continue to be impressed all in all, Davey, with the weekend that Tristan Vautier is putting together in that 51 car.
Yeah, I was just looking at those times and bringing him up. I mean, obviously they were towards the front early on, got some quick times in, but at 103.5, Castroneves 103.5 as well, right in front of him. Fittipaldi 103.5, Lundqvist 103.4. I mean, he's right in the game with everybody. So pretty darn impressive for Vautier, not being an IndyCar for quite a few years and being able to jump in this Del Coyne car and short towards the front. Now, looks like Rasmussen has some issues, has to turn a lot of laps down in that 27th spot. Same with Rosenquist. And one of our, I think Rosenquist, if I'm not mistaken, he's been in the top 5 qualifying, I think, every race this year, if not really close. So pretty impressive. But right now, it doesn't have the speed going into this final practice session before qualifying.
Alexander Rossi backs out of a runoff area and backs in into some oncoming traffic, but finally gets it going in the right direction, and looks like he's had another brief off.
Get another one off, and so I mean, I don't know. It's definitely time. You can see he just locks that left front up a little bit, gets in that runoff area. Instead of spinning around, he just backed it up, went into a little hole there where the cars come out on the racetrack, and well, I guess he didn't make that hole. He just backed up on the track, took off right from another car, but made it, got out of there, and on the way he goes, and right front Graham Rahal.
So again, about 12 and a half minutes remaining in this session. Is we start in terms of grip, starting to hit the sweet spot on this racetrack?
Yeah, I think the grip is actually really good right now. It's a bit breezy. Michael brought that up earlier, that the wind in between these buildings, it kind of circulates around. It definitely, if you can't feel it, sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. These race cars, just depending on how it's coming at you. But it definitely affects the handling of these race cars. I mean, it may not be a big difference, but I think track conditions as far as temperature is good. I think ambient temperature is good. I think these drivers have a lot of rubber on this racetrack to make it optimal. And I think right now we have two cars now in the 61 second range, almost identical times. Listen to this: Colton Herta 101.732 to a 101.738. So pretty close, and those teammates was Herta and Kirkwood.
And we see Felix Rosenquist watching him work his way around the course. And after running in the top 15 yesterday, he finds himself toward the bottom in the 26th position.
Yeah, pretty surprising. We'll see if he gets a good lap in right now, getting ready to cross that timeline. We'll see if it improves as he crosses it right there. And it does improve, not a lot. It goes from 27th to 16th. I mean, it's 11 spots. It is impressive to do that, but that's not where he wants to be. He wants to be in that top 10 for sure. So I don't think he's going to get another good lap in. He's not. He's coming in the pit area right now. There was some traffic in front of him. We'll see what changes they make and see if he gets back on track with 11 minutes left.
Marcus Ericsson continues to find some pace. He's worked his way up to 19th after a disjointed start due to some electrical issues on the other end of the spectrum. It looks like a pretty good start for his teammates. Colton Herta, Kyle Kirkwood run 1-2, and Davey, we look at those engine manufacturers. Top 3 spots right now belong to Honda. The next 3 to Chevrolet. The next 2 to Honda. 1 to Chevy and 1 to Honda. So pretty evenly split among the top 10. But importantly, Honda has the top 3 spots.
Top 3, yeah. And how about Canapino? I'm going to continue to talk about him. He's in that P4 position right now, the highest, the fastest Chevrolet in front of the 2 Penske cars of McLaughlin and Power. He's getting the very most out of that car, no question about it. Now, there's other cars out there that I think are going to be, when it comes to qualifying time, and we're going to say that another Honda with Rosenquist, I think is going to be up in there when time counts. And BK seems to have some speed with that Ed Carpenter car in that Chevrolet. We'll just have to see how that works out when it comes to qualifying, if he can get the most out of it. But some cars that were really fast at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway almost won the race. That's Pato Ward, his teammate Rossi, super fast there. But right now, those McLaren cars find themselves out of the top 10, 11th and 12th, about a second off, and about 3/4 of a second off the pace. So a little surprising that those McLaren cars are struggling a little bit. And the other one, they have 3 of them here. Porsche in that 17th spot.
Michael Young.
Yeah, for Scott McLaughlin, they're going to adjust those rear dampers, change the spring rates on those. And for Rinus VeeKay, they're buttoning up the cowling on that car. Didn't see what changes they made, but he will go to a set of sticker Firestones for this final 10 minutes or so. So too Scott McLaughlin. Kyle Kirkwood, who is quick, sits on pit lane. So too Agustin Canapino. All 4 of those cars we expect to see before this session's over.
And we just saw Kiffin Simpson take advantage of one of the primary passing zones here into that hairpin turn number 3. He snuck the driver's left on the 45 machine of Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing, and kind of a bit of a surprise. Christian Lundgaard, I don't think he expected Kiffin Simpson to be to his inside going into that turn.
Yeah, a little surprising there. We're watching right now. Everybody trying to get slowed down for this timeline. We see Colton Herta, I don't think he's worried about time. He's right on the back of Ferrucci going down to that timeline. You can see Ferrucci warming his tires up and wants to go down turn 1. Colton shoots down underneath of him, blocks that, so much for his run. Not very kind or friendly when it comes time to try to get a run in. Colton just wants to go for it. He's already on P1 right now.
Wow, look at that.
He's just back there trying to get by Ferrucci. At that point, Ferrucci probably should just let him go at that point and got clear track behind him.
Well, you know, you've talked about it before with in those situations. I mean, you're comfortable with whatever line the other driver wants to take. You just like it to be consistent with that line on the racetrack, right, so you know where they're going.
They just need to know where they're going for sure. Right now, we see Ferrucci. Yesterday, he ended up P7 overall. After it was all done, he's P19 right now. They have a fresh sticker set of Firestone primary tires on that car right now. He's going to go out and see if he can find some clear track, see what kind of lap he can lay down, see if he can get back towards the front of this field.
Rosenquist has started to pick up some pace. He was languishing around 26th position. He's now improved up to 19th. And how about Teo Porcher, Davey, back in the car after not participating in the Indianapolis 500 in favor of Callum Ilott? He has worked his way into the top 10, Davey. Teo Porcher currently fourth quick for McLaren.
Yeah, we were just talking about Porcher being back a little bit with that car, but that guy, a McLaren car, the fastest of that Aero McLaren team, P4, ahead of his teammates of Rossi and Pato O'Ward. They're in 12th and 14th at this point.
Again, as we always do, we kind of give people an idea of exactly what the debrief's going to look like and what adjustments will be made to these race cars before we go qualifying between the time the session wraps up here in about 5 minutes until the time we go qualifying later today.
Yeah, and a lot of these cars, including Colton Herta, who's P1 right now, is putting another set of sticker or primary tires on that car of his before he goes out, as you said, with just over 6 minutes left, trying to get a few more laps in, see if they can improve this car for qualifying.
So now, obviously, a vastly different wing configuration and everything. The aero setup on all these cars vastly changed from where they were just 1 week ago. Some may already have had their car ready here for Detroit. Vastly different than the car, different car entirely that they used for the Indy 500. But for those who may have, had to effect changes to the race car, how long is that process to turn that car around, or have they been doing it so long it's a pretty quick turnaround?
Yeah, you really need a good day to really take your time, do everything properly, get it on the setup pad. It's completely different wing packages, shock packages, suspension packages. It's all different. Same tub, same monocoque. That's all the same, so you don't have to change that. But you can do it very quickly if you need to, but most of these teams probably took a good day, massage the cars. Like I say, you need to put on the skill pads, make sure as Pato O'Ward goes off and installs it in one of the runoff areas, is just make sure it's perfect when it comes time to come here. Now, you don't need a body fit here like you do at Indy. Indy may make sure that thing's smooth. There's no paint lines. There's no bodies cracks. But here, it's just put it together.
We heard Tristan Vautier talk a little bit yesterday about the cramping that he had in his forearms after that practice session, and so clearly they need to make some adjustment for him in the cockpit. That's part of this process too.
He said he was a little surprised. He forgot how far the wheel was in front of him, and what happens is the farther you get that wheel away from you, the harder it is to turn in some of those areas. So they can put some wheel spacers on and get that wheel closer to him, where you got more leverage with your forearms and your shoulders and biceps to be able to turn that car, not just way out in front of you with your forearms.
I think the most interesting thing that he said that they asked him, Michael asked him to compare this car to how it felt the last time that he was in an NTT IndyCar Series car, and he kind of jokingly said, it's been so long ago, I don't really remember.
Yeah. One thing I was surprised, he goes, well, the extra weight because of the halo, but he didn't say the halo.
Yeah, that's right.
And the difference, because I have to think, I still had an opportunity to drive a car with the halos, and things got messed up in testing, didn't get to do it, but still want to do that. Just try to find out, I shouldn't say halo, the aero screen.
Right.
Just to see, because I know it's hot in there. I know it's just a different environment. We're having a windshield, and I just never been in an Indy car with a windshield, but I look forward to someday getting in one.
And again, very proud of the fact that they continue to massage on that aero screen and make it lighter. And they, undertook an effort to try to get more air into the cockpit. But at a place like this, when you're not really going to see a lot of high speed, that additional air intake's not much of a benefit.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for these drivers right now, what they've been able to do is wear cool suits, which helps keep their body temperature down. You need air into the helmets, but if you look right behind the cockpit, you'll see a couple inlets with tubes in their helmets that the air comes through and rifle some air into their helmets. So it's better. They did have a scoop, and I think they should be running here, Mark. I can't see it. We're on INDYCAR right now with Newgard. Have to go look at the very top of that aero screen just to try to get some generic air just blowing in at your.
Been on there for a couple of races now, and we at that presentation by Tino Bella and Dave First talking a little bit about the changes that they made most recently to that aero screen. Let's get an update from Pit Road and Ryan Marine.
couple of the front runners that have been here in the pit lane, including Colton Herta, who you guys mentioned a few moments ago, set his best time, immediately came into the pits. They've just sent him out after making a couple of adjustments. And then how about Theo Pourchaire? He's been at the tip of the spear here in this practice session for Arrow McLaren. That's his engine you hear firing up in the background. They just topped him up with fuel, took the cowling off, made a couple of inspection looks on the car, but no changes. And it looks like he's about to go out. There he goes, right back out on track, looking for a little bit more speed.
Yeah, looking good early with 3 minutes to go in the session. Today, Herta, Kirkwood, Pillow, Pourchaire, Canapino, then McLaughlin, Lundgaard, Power, Dixon, and Newgarden. Interesting to hear some of the thoughts and impressions of these drivers. Maybe when this session is over, and we ask a question whenever we're on these road and street courses, and we haven't really gotten a definitive answer because of the fact, Davey, this year we haven't seen between the alternates and the primaries, we haven't seen a huge level of drop-off, which kind of makes your stacking those tires to your pit strategy interesting.
Yeah, that's right, and that's one thing that we want to see is the drop-off. You got to remember, Firestone has engineered these tires for the hybrid engine, which is a little bit heavier, a little more durable of a tire, just to be prepared for that hybrid. Then the hybrid didn't get ready. Boy, here it is packed up again in turn 4, trying to get single file for this timeline. But, man, I tell you, it's a dangerous situation to do that, because by the time on the short course that you get free laps, you're going to come around, the people are going to be stacked up there, and we've seen this right now. Colton Herta comes off turn 4, going down into turn 5, and just has to completely come to a stop because the cars in front of him just trying to get to that timeline, and it's messing up laps for everybody. And that's where maybe the split groups will be better off.
That's what I was getting ready to say. I mean, we had that split group session yesterday, 45 minutes, and they split it into 2 groups. And with these 27, 28 car fields on a course like this that's relatively short and very unforgiving and tight, maybe moving forward, the split sessions might be the way to go.
Yeah, because right now they're just wasting a lot of each other's time. And by the way, that's very dangerous. We see, and then we have a red flag here at turn 9 right now. Tapato Award, yeah. Interesting area to spin right there. I'm trying to see exactly where that is coming off of turn 9. Well, that's Pourchaire, actually.
Oh, it's Pourchaire,
yeah, it's Pourchaire right now. We're just talking about him. What a good run. But he just came out on those new tires, going to try to lay one down, and just locked it up, and looks like in the outside tire. Oh, he just went straight, couldn't get it turned in that right-hander, turn 9. Doesn't look like it damaged the car or hurt it very much, but just trying to get the most out of it.
And he was 4th quick in the session, so it's been a relatively smooth session for him up until that point. And so he is 4th quick as the clock is stopped with 1:15, and so the drivers will get the full complement of the 45, because we're still well within that window to get that 45 minutes in, which is important to them. Yeah. AMR INDYCAR safety crew on the scene, and they're trying to get him backed away from that tire barrier, and we're getting a look at the onboard camera right now.
Yeah, what happens, you see he'll just lock it up, just go straight. Actually hits that thing pretty darn good. Just man, way too much speed going into that corner, and did not a chance to slow down. Thank goodness for. But it moved the concrete barrier about 3 feet.
Yeah.
Hit the tire barrier, so it was a good hit straight on. Hopefully it didn't hurt anything. Hit it with it absorbed a lot of energy by moving all that stuff. But boy, we see a few cars locking them up, trying to keep them running over each other into turn 5.
Yeah, there are about 7 cars there lined up going into turn number 5, and the last car in line really had to take some evasive maneuvers to avoid plowing into the back of that field.
Yeah, and second time we see Rossi backing up into the racetrack. I'm sorry, maybe that was the first one, because it's back in front of Rahal again. So
yeah, he didn't spin it around and wait on traffic to clear. He just backed it right up and got right underway.
Yeah, and took off again. As long as it doesn't affect anybody, that's good. But that's the first time we've seen anybody in turn 9 have issues like that. Pourchaire just got in there a little bit hot.
So, again, we can share the schedule with you for the rest of this day. Qualifying sessions are next for both Indy next. That'll be at 11:20 Eastern and then 12:15 Eastern IndyCar qualifying. And because of how tight and unforgiving this place could be, Davey, as we said once upon a time, there was an issue once upon a time with drivers. Not an issue, we should say, as the drivers were fine getting to that round of 12. But now they want to get themselves inside of that Fast 6.
Yeah, right now we're watching a little replay.
Kirkwood and Ferrucci.
I don't know if it was this morning or yesterday, but boy, they definitely heated. And Kirkwood came down to talk to Ferrucci, and Ferrucci just got right back after him, got in his face, and don't know exactly what happened. It was very short, but Ferrucci wanted nothing to do with the conversation, so shot him right out of that AJ Foyt pit and got that conversation done with. Oh, we're watching it right here. Oh, well, yeah, I'm not sure. Looks like a little aggressiveness with Ferrucci. I mean, I think it's back to the same thing. These cars going so slow. That's exactly what it is. Is he just so slow? And he actually turned left and blocked Ferrucci, trying not to get around him. And see, that's just, I look at it a couple times, and that's back to where I completely blame that on Kirkwood, honestly, because you can't, if you're going to go slow, it's something that's to go fast. This is a racetrack, and it's not about going slow. I know there's some gentlemen deals in, but sometimes you're on a lap and you're frustrated and you can't get any time, but don't block the guy because that's just going to cause a wreck.
That also might have been a response to an earlier incident, though, too.
Yeah, well, Ferrucci's known for that, too. I mean, if Kirkwood was to do something to him, he's going to come back at you and vice versa. So, here's what I think. I think race control needs to figure something out, honestly, on these areas, on these tracks where they're stopping to try to get these timelines faster or trying to get them to cleaner and figure that out where it's safe for everybody. But we seen it at St. Petersburg, Sato came around that final corner at St. Pete to try to get, and everybody slowed down, and he was coming with a full head of steam, and he locked up and smashed into the back of another car, just not expecting it. So it's just a dangerous situation for sure.
Fifth quick in the session for Augustin Canapino, Michael Young.
Yeah, he's had enough. He's climbed out of the car, but what a difference a year makes. I remember talking to you further down when you tore up suspension last year here in the streets of Detroit. You had an amazing Indianapolis 500. This entire 2024 campaign is a night and day, a stark difference for you as a driver. You've improved so much, and to be fifth here in this final practice session before we go into qualifying, Augustin Canapino, you have become quite an IndyCar driver. Well done so far.
Thank you very much. We're improving a lot, of course. For me, it's my second year in open wheel cars, in open wheels in IndyCar too. So thanks for the team. We are growing a lot. We are P5 now. We are doing a really good job this year. We need to transfer now. We need to transfer now our practice to the qualifying. We are working hard to try to transfer this pace to the qualifying to try to be in our first top 12.
We saw a lot of traffic on track, a lot of cars stacking up. Did you have that issue, and how do we rectify that?
The last year was the same here. Honestly, again, the same thing for me. In my opinion, 27 cars in this type of street courses is impossible. So I think we need, in my opinion, have two groups to practice separate, maybe a little bit less of time, but I think it's one of the things we need to pay attention for the next year.
Thank you for your time. Good luck in qualifying.
Thank you.
That's a fifth running Augustin Canapino in this practice session.
Yeah, I think if that voice gets a little louder and gets a little unified, Davey, we might see, especially here next year, we might see some changes in the approach.
Not just here, but I mean on the courses where these drivers, I mean, there just needs to be some kind of agreement that you can't just stop on the racetrack. I mean, This is a racetrack. It's to go fast, and by you doing that could impede somebody else's speed that's already going out there, and then you're messing them up, even though you're trying to get clean track. So they just need to talk about it. They need to make it safer. I don't like it. I think once you're on racetrack, it's go time. And then you need to find your space, but that's by slowing down maybe a little bit, but not just stopping on the racetrack and getting in the line like that.
So, Davey told you, Portier, move that wall a couple of feet, and so to that end, some repairs to that going to be needed. They need to make sure that those walls are intact and the original integrity is in place the way it was when we started this weekend from a safety standpoint, as everyone continues to debrief and the dust up between Kyle Kirkwood and Santino Ferrucci. Colton Herta, as we mentioned, with about 1:15 left in the sessions, P1, then Kirkwood, Palou, Portier, Canapino, then McLaughlin, Lundgaard, Power, Dixon, and Newgarden. Ray Hall, 11th quick, 12th Rossi, 13th Erickson, 14th Grosjean, 15th O'Ward, 16th VK, 17th Armstrong, Rasmussen, 18th, 19th Rosenquist, 20th Santino Ferrucci, Fittipaldi, Simpson, Robb, Lundquist, Castroneves, Vautier, and Harvey. Yet another look at the replay of the issue between those two.
Well, yeah, and at several cars, what they're doing is they're turning, and actually Kirkwood and Herta both kind of turned to block him, and I don't know. I can see it from both sides right now. They're trying to get a clean track. Ferrucci just wants to go. He wants to get some laps in, and then they're making the aggressive action, try to block him like that. And I don't know if that's the right thing to do. We've seen Colton Herta actually. He's P1 right now, but we've seen him passing guys down there too that were slowing him up. So Ferrucci didn't want him in that pit, did he?
No, he didn't want him in the pit box. He didn't want to have a conversation. And basically just said, nope, not talking about it. And Kirkwood walked away.
So, they need to fix it. There's no question about it. We'll see what they say. They just need to fix it. But you can't. This isn't playing chicken out there by any stretch, right?
Ryan
so
Marie.
they need to get fixed.
I went to go chat with Elio Castroneves. He's out of the car, and the strangest thing happened. Elio Castroneves was silent. He has lost his voice, and that's very strange coming from that bubbly personality. So anyway, that'll be a challenge for Elio this weekend. Michael Young.
Well, things get a little heated on a short track like this, especially as tight as it is. Kyle Kirkwood, Santino Ferrucci, I know you went down to talk to him. Nothing really happened, no conversation, but certainly eye contact was made. What's going on out on the track?
Yeah, I went down there just to talk to him and see where his head at, why he kind of just drove into us and tried to drive us into the wall. I mean, everyone's out there trying to get their laps, just trying to get clear track. Everyone does the same thing where we back up and we try and get a 2 or 3 second gap, right? But he wasn't playing that game. And he thought maybe I defended on him and wanted to drive me into the wall. I don't know. I went to talk to him about it because it's just not common courtesy that we have here in IndyCar, and he's the only one doing it out there. But he decided that he didn't want to talk to me, that he wanted to grab me and act like he was going to throw a punch at me. So I just laughed. I think it's hilarious. I'm surprised that he was like that and he responded like that. But I'm not too worried about it. We're just going to forget about it and move on.
You're very quick out there, but how do we get past all this traffic? Obviously, it has become an issue here. Does it become a split session? How do we get everybody freed up so we avoid that type of thing?
Well, clearly the split session helped yesterday. It was the same thing in practices last year where it just turns into a massive accordion effect late in the runs where everyone wants to get a 3 or 4 or 5 second gap, but there's just not enough room for 27 cars to be able to do that. So, we just need to try and figure out a way to make it better for us drivers and actually get some laps at the end of the session, because that was something that we knew was going to be an issue at the end, and it isn't something that people should be getting upset about.
All that said, P2 on the timing and scoring chart, you have a fast race car here getting ready for qualifying.
Yeah, clearly Andretti Global is doing well. We were quick yesterday. We're quick again today. We were solid last year, so it's no surprise. So happy with what we've got so far, and go.
We'll let you get back to it. Thank you for your time. Good luck in qualifying.
I missed that. I'm sorry.
I just said good luck in qualifying.
Oh, thank you.
That's Kyle Kirkwood, guys. Everything got a little hectic down here. Everybody peeling out.
Yeah, and I think Kirkwood, after he made the move, Ferrucci made that move inside of Kirkwood. You saw him approach Colton Herta, and Colton Herta it made a little bit of an erratic move towards Santino Ferrucci, and I think that's what got the blood boiling. Was that follow-up move by Herta.
Well, and he said it. Kirkwood said it. Hey, we tried to get a couple second gap between everybody, but it's just not working. You just can't, that now if race control is going to let you do that, it's going to continue to be a fight like this.
Right.
And because some guys say, hey, I just need lap time. I just want to go. I'm not going to stop here and just try to cut a lap.
Right.
I want to get going here. And so until something is done and there's a structure and a way to go about this safely, and I think split sessions may do it, or say, guys, if you guys slow down for the timeline and you come to a stop, you're going to be penalized for it.
Well, as you suggest, I think it's reasonable if there are 2 or 3 drivers that want to take a slow pace and try to gain some gap and some separation. If there's another driver that doesn't have that plan and he wants to get going, then I think that's well within that driver's right to do that. Let's go to Michael Young.
Well, with Santino Ferrucci. We just spoke with Kyle Kirkwood. He said he came down to talk to you and that he thought you were being a little aggressive out there. You had wanted to hear nothing about that. So what say you about the situation out here on track?
No, look, I was on a push lap. I was up on my dash, so we were looking to go inside the top 10 pretty good. And, obviously common courtesy is you move out of the way for people when they're on a push lap. It was just him and Herta left, and he just lit him up down the hill and fully turned into me. What am I supposed to do? And he wants to come over here and tell me it's my fault. But, I think he's got a short-term memory thing because he did the same thing to Newgarden. So, dude, you can't come over here and come complain to me and my team, so get lost.
Is this all a byproduct of this track, though, and the situation out there? We talk about how we can fix it. Maybe a split session is the best way to do it. It's got to be difficult for you guys to find track space out there.
Yeah, no, obviously it's a really tough track. It's elbows out, but I mean, I have more respect for the guy than that. I mean, it's kind of childish in a way. I mean, like, I get it, we're all competitive and stuff like that, but I mean, it's just really unnecessary to do, to put both cars of ours at risk in such a tight turnaround to qualifying. So I don't know why you just sit there and let me make my corners and complete my lap, man. I mean, it's not a big deal.
All that said, how's the car for qualifying?
It's good. We have a top 10 car. I mean, I feel really good about it. We're right with our Penske counterparts, and yeah, it's just tough because we have really nothing to show for it because of all the mess that's happening.
Appreciate the time. Best of luck in qualifying.
Thank you.
That's Santino Ferrucci.
Yeah, good stuff getting both sides of that, Michael Young, for both drivers.
Yeah, it is. And you know, I agree with both sides of it. It's like, hey, I want to get a lap. I'm going to slow down so I can get that ideal lap. But then Ferrucci, like I said, he was already on his lap. He needed to try to finish it. So there needs to be a structure. And I'm not just talking this racetrack. We see it time and time happen again. So we need to figure it out. There needs to be talked about amongst the race control, the drivers, to figure out a common courtesy way. Back in the day, we didn't do that. It just, you go for it. Where you come out, and then you may gap yourself a little bit, but you just gap yourself a little bit, not by stopping, but by just slowing down a little bit down a straightaway or something like that. And if somebody's coming on you, that's kind of, oh well. But it is dangerous. I mean, I'd seen it years ago when Sato come around a corner, and all of a sudden everybody stopped, and he blasted in the back of a car. Pretty dangerous.
Let's go to Ryan Marine.
Christian Lundgaard ended up 7th in the practice session in the Hy-Vee Honda. It was rough and tumble out there, not much space. What was the practice session like for you?
I think the session was okay. I think we have a lot of pace compared to last year, so very happy with that. But I don't really know what IndyCar expects when they put 27 cars out on a 1.6 mile track. So I think they've kind of really done that to themselves in terms of us stacking up in uncomfortable areas, but it's the same for everybody, and I think qualifying will be a lot easier when we're half a grid.
Do you have any suggestions that might help in a practice session like that one?
Build a longer racetrack.
Simple as that. Hey, how do you feel about your chances to qualify in the Fast Six or perhaps on pole?
I think we have a good shot. I think the car is fast. It's a lot faster than it was last year, so got to say thanks to the team and Hy-Vee for delivering that. I think there's a lot of good vibes around the team right now.
Christian Lundgaard, P7 in practice 2.
Good stuff from Michael Young and Ryan Marine on pit road. Herta, Kirkwood, Pillow, Portier, Canapino. Portier, by the way, checked out at the infield care center. He's okay, been released. The car didn't look too badly damaged. McLaughlin, Lundgaard, Power, Dixon, and Newgarden, your top 10. Qualifying is next, a little bit later on, 12:15 this afternoon. Before then, 11:20 Eastern, qualifying for Indy next. For everyone. So long for now from the Chevrolet Detroit Grand Prix presented by Lear.
Yeah, absolutely. As well, 11th, Rahal, Rossi, Ericsson, Grosjean, O'Ward in 15th. Then it's VK, Armstrong, Rasmussen, Rosenqvist, Ferrucci, your top 20. Then it's Fittipaldi, Simpson, Stingray, Robb, Lundqvist, Castaneves, Vortier, and Harvey rounds out the field in 27th place as well. You can join us a little bit later on for qualifying, which will be at 5:15 p.m, 12:15 Eastern, and we hope you can join us there. The end of practice 2 here in Detroit. We hope to see you for qualifying in a couple of hours' time. See you then.